bits of our evolutionary wiring, which is called the negativity bias, which is that tendency that we have to pay more heed to the negative than to the positive, pay more heed to the one piece of negative feedback than the many pieces of positive feedback. Yeah? The one comment in a conversation that rubs us the wrong way, that strikes us the wrong way, than the many parts of that conversation that went well. Yeah? The one piece of someone that we don't like so much, that we don't relate to so much, rather than all the positive aspects of a person's personality. Apparently, evolutionary psychology suggests that this had very much to do with, in the early days of our wiring, when we were on the steppe, with survival, and how much more important it was to be to anticipate even the possibly dangerous that could hurt us, that actually could end our DNA line. The classic example is if you saw a beige patch on the other side of the hill, it would behoove you to imagine that it might be a lion, rather than to go, well, whatever, it's probably just a heap of straw. Because if you guessed the wrong way and it was a lion, that might be the end of your DNA line and the end of experiencing anything positive in this lifetime. And that somehow that got wired in as a survival mechanism. And that it's part of what we carry forward. No? This is one of those things that we're actually all familiar with. It's just been given a name. It's like, oh yeah, I can relate to that, right? And the relevance of that, especially at a very stressful time like this, it's always true. Negativity bias is part of our wiring, part of our orientation. But it's even more true in a very stressful time like this, and it's more true in our meditation practice itself. So that it can become even harder, more challenging. It can take even more intention to not be hijacked, to not be pulled under by the negativity bias. To not be pulled under more, as we're meditating this morning, by a news flash from the night before, than whatever positive orientation, thought, inclination we might have in our meditation. That could be more these days like dust in the wind, in the face of the negative thought, the negative fantasy, the catastrophic thought. No? We're more inclined to go down that rabbit hole these days, even when we meditate, which is why it's more challenging for many of us to sit by ourselves. Even those of us who have somewhat regular practice, it's more challenging because the negativity bias is exerting more pull, more pull, more pull. And it's harder to reset. It's more challenging. It takes more intention. It takes more intention. Mm-hmm. Yeah? Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
So what we want to do is we want to actually begin to notice when that habit of mind happens. Because if we don't notice, we're just going to operate out of it and get lost. So the idea is, in practice, in meditation, we're learning to train attention. We're learning to notice unhelpful habits. Oh, I see you. There you are. And label it. Label it, however you'd like to label it. Catastrophizing. That's not a bad one. Catastrophizing. And put a big fat mindfulness star around that word, because you just saw something that's hard to see. Now take a breath and come on back in. Ground, breathe, calm, settle, soothe. In order for us to soothe, we have to see what it is that's upsetting us. So notice and name that, and take a breath and come on back in. Ground, breathe, calm, settle, soothe. This is the new move. And as Bill is saying, it is not our habit. This is counterintuitive, it's revolutionary, it's new. The mind wants to stay in the negative and dwell there. And we're saying, no, I know where that's gonna go. I'm gonna pull back from that and I'm gonna smooth it out in here. Pull back from that. Notice and name it.
Yeah, when the Buddha talked about building a raft to take us to the other shore, he wasn't talking about riding the train of the negativity bias to the other shore. Yeah? In the Eightfold Path, there wasn't one that said, right negativity bias. Do you know? And so that's part of what we're doing in practice all the time, but it's even more important now. And it's why we will suggest cultivating, coming back to something that has, not just observing the sensations of the breath, but coming back to a landing pad, creating something more comforting, more comfortable, more holding, more friendly. Huh? Yeah. Yeah. So let's do that together this morning. Mostly, as Susan's suggesting, it will be this. The thing to notice in particular, as we're meditating this morning, if you like, which is what we'll be doing, is to notice the negativity bias when it arises, the fearful thought, the anxious thought, the fantasy, the negative fantasy, the catastrophic. You know? To notice that, when you notice it, to be willing to come back. You notice I do this a lot these days in meditation. Come back. Yeah. Yeah. Noticing and come back. Thinking not so much about staying with this holding space. It's lovely if that stays for a few seconds, for a half a breath, for a whole breath once in a while. But it's the willingness to return. When you find yourself going down an unwholesome kind of rabbit hole, yeah? Yeah? The willingness to return becomes even more important than the staying. Yeah. And it's supportive to do that together with like-minded others. We're all orienting in that way. So as you lightly close your eyes,